I remember once in my early adulthood, like when I was out on my own for the first time, I had an uncle tell me,
Listen, I know a lot of people love to save their cash for savings and whatnot. I like to use my money for what I want to. What I had done is I just get a credit card and I use it for emergencies. And if let's say I spend $1,000, $2,000 because I can't pay whatever, I don't even bother paying it off right away. I just continue to make minimum payments until I somehow get a windfall from a tax return or a big something, and I'll get it paid off. Like I live my life just chill and casual.
now keep in mind, young Javi, very little foundation, didn't really get taught anything about money or finances. And I just went with it. I was like, okay, cool. And when I could get my first credit card, I got it. When I moved out and, I was starting to start my life with my wife, our dogs would get like sick or something. And I would just pull out a care credit and just put it on credit. This really set me up for some bad habits and bad things that I really regret. And even to this day still affect me. But either way, it makes me think there's a lot of people out there who are looking to buy real estate of some kind and might have heard some bad advice. So today we're going to look at the top 3 pieces of bad advice that I've heard recently and really talk about what's wrong with this kind of thing. Now, you might think it's going to be like, oh, like something dumb, but really, these are like things that are considered practical advice that you might hear from someone who's trying to sell you a house, or maybe a family or friend member who maybe have good intentions, but maybe you should just do things your own way. The first piece of advice that I always hear is always buy, never rent. Renting is the same as throwing your money away. Listen, this advice was really popular, and I'm ashamed to say even by myself, I used to really throw this out like in the early 2010s, because there was a time between 2010 to 2015 where it just absolutely made sense to buy. Down payment assistance was cheap. It was as like almost the same interest rate as if you paid your own down payment. And not only that, but your monthly payment was a lot cheaper than going to rent. So there was a period of time of our lives, or at least the last 10, 20 years, where it was an absolute no-brainer to buy. And in that situation, always buy, never rent made sense. However, with things getting more complicated, with things getting more expensive, it's not as easy as we can just throw these terms around now like it always makes sense. And I would even say if prices do drop over the next few years, I would still challenge the idea that it always makes sense to buy and never rent. Because at the end of the day, renting has a lot of pros. The biggest thing is that I really see as a positive is you don't have to worry about maintenance. And this is huge. You can just save. You can really control your budget. You don't have to plan for emergencies. Like what if the boiler breaks? What if the AC breaks? You can have a much better idea of where the money's going in, what needs to get spent, and you can really take control of your finances. And for a lot of people who maybe had not so good family members like myself give bad advice, we might welcome a year or two of just having a more predictable expense sheet. That way we can control our habits a little better and get things under their control. You know what I'm saying? It's not always a bad idea. Another reason why renting is not a bad idea is because it doesn't lock you in. And I know, I get it, you can always sell your house, but when you rent, you at least make a commitment for a year. If you buy a house and it turns out the neighbor ends up being, I don't know, racist, or you end up having a terrible relationship with the street, or it turns out like the house is okay for 6 months, but then some terrible like drug dealers move in like in the street, and now you're a local hotspot for all the best drugs of your city. Although that's a great advantages for some, for most everyone else, it's terrible. So like if something like that were to happen, yes, if you own your home, you could technically sell. Yes, you can technically turn it into a rental, but it's nice to know you have 12-month commitments. Every 12 months you can adjust. And yes, it does suck to move out every 12 months, but when you're in a period of your life when you're figuring things out, this isn't a bad idea to have. And the biggest con that people throw around when it comes to renting is, well, it's not an investment. You're throwing your money away. Listen, nowadays real estate isn't that much of a solid investment anyways. Market conditions are not great for people who want to make a lot of money off of real estate. It is for people that have a strong financial situation where they've built the good habits, they have the savings, and for them, it just makes sense to grow roots in a certain area, right? But for everyone else, which is, I would say, the majority of people, you might not be financially ready to be in that position. And on top of that, if once you get in a house, there's no guarantee you actually are going to make money. There's no guarantee. You might be in there for a long ride and you won't be able to dip in a year, 2 years, or 3 years like you've been used to. So a lot of pros and cons. And I would really challenge this idea of when someone does tell me it never makes sense to rent, it always makes sense to buy. Well, you have good advice that worked for you that's based off of an old market that doesn't exist anymore, or are you just trying to get me to buy a house? Second bad advice that I really don't regret you do is skip out on the home inspection and skip out on the home appraisal. It makes our offer look really good and it gives you a much better chance of your offer getting accepted. Listen, I know that multiple offer situations are very stressful, especially when you find a house that you really love and you know you're competing against other people. It feels like if you lose a house, you're going to lose everything. I remind you in moments like these that a house are walls, windows, and a door. If you think this is the perfect house for you and if you don't get, you're never going to find anything else the same, you're emotionally unstable. I'm sorry. Maybe it's not you. Maybe you need to send this video to someone that you know and you don't want to call them emotionally unstable. Let me be the bad guy. You're emotionally unstable because here's the deal. You're not buying your dream. You're buying someone else's dream. If you like the way the house was remodeled, it's because someone had a vision and they accomplished it. And now you're in love with someone else's dream. At the end of the day, you might not find the same exact house with the same exact dream, but you might find a similar model that you can then convert into your dream, right? But if you get yourself highly emotionally attached to a piece of property, you're putting a lot of at stake, you're not going to put yourself in a favorable position to negotiate. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to walk away from the house. That's how you get the best deals. At the end of the day, you might find yourself in a multiple offer situation where the agent might say, hey, let's just skip our inspection, skip our appraisal. Or they might even say, hey, there's other offers on the table and they're waiving their inspection or they're waiving their appraisal. So we should do the same. At the end of the day, there are plenty of houses out there and you can decide to say, no, thanks. I'll submit my offer. I'm not going to do that. I have the inspection is there to protect you. The appraisal is there to protect you. And yes, the house might look like in great shape, but there's just things that you might not see. Or the appraisal, but yeah, the house looks like it's validly priced, but what if the appraisal catches a comp that's just maybe not public, or maybe you missed, and now you bought yourself an overpriced piece of property. So at the end of the day, this is bad advice that I would not follow. Those things are there for a reason, and find another place that will get you the situation that you're looking for. Last one is a little bit on the controversial side because this has been very popular over the last 6 months. Date the rate, marry the house. Or you might hear, marry the house, date the rate.
Don't worry. Just get the house that you love. Don't worry about the rate. It's going to suck. When the rates drop, you're just dating the rate. You're just going to refinance. No issue. It's okay. Nothing's going to happen.
Because guess what? When rates drop, the prices are going to go up and you're going to be screwed out of position. Here's the thing. No one can tell the future. But as someone who, yes, I'm a dirty, filthy realtor. Yes, at the end of the day, I have to sell houses to feed my family. I'm also very in tune with words or scripts or tactics that are used to manipulate your emotions to get you to do something you want. And when I hear that, date the rate, marry the house, or, you can just refinance later and just get the house you want, or else because houses will get too expensive. That is just a clear, someone's playing to my emotions and they're trying to get me to do something sooner than I'm ready. There's a clear issue with this line of thinking. Let's say you buy a house for $450,000 at a 7.5% interest rate. Well, next year, interest rates drop to 6.5%. Well, can you just refinance now? Yeah, I guess. But what if your house for $450,000 is now worth $400,000? Whoops. You can't refinance in a house that is underwater. You have to gain some equity. And the odds of your $450,000 house actually gain value and now it's worth like $470,000, $480,000 is not likely in this volatile market, or you might get extremely lucky and it might work. You're rolling the dice. You're rolling your dice on your future. Listen, I'm not ready to talk about my personal situation, but let's just say over the last few years, I got put in a position that I'm not very comfortable with. And I am working my butt off right now to make sure to get myself out of a situation that I really regret. And that situation was based out of like, hey, this is only temporary. I can just refinance later. And yes, it happens to the best of us because when we're buying a house, life might be good. The money might be rolling in. And you're like, yeah, this is absolutely no big issue whatsoever. You can't control what happens in life. Last year, my wife gave birth to her daughter, premature, 5-6 weeks. A lot of stress, a lot of financial issues came out of it. And there's no way I could have predicted that happening. There's absolutely no way that we can predict this. This is a beautiful thing about our life, is it's so unpredictable. And the thing that these people that are pushing this idea that you can just refinance later, date the rate, is they're expecting that your next 3 to 5 years are going to go great. And they're expecting that the world is going to go great and that actually you'll gain value and rates will drop and everything's going to be smooth. And it's not about being negative. It's just about being realistic, because at the end of the day, you're responsible for, now maybe you don't have a family, maybe it's just you, but you're responsible for that house. But if you do have a family, you're responsible for feeding those people and making sure they have shelter. And a lot of things, I wasn't around, I wasn't a fully formed adult last time the market crashed, but I bet a lot of those decisions were made because people were being told this is never going to end. It's going to only continue to go up and up and up. And that's true until it's not, which no one can really control that. Those are forces out of our power. So the best thing you can do is take power and control the things you can control by putting yourself in a position that you can afford. I don't care if the rates are going to drop and the rate you're being quoted can be refinanced later. Whatever monthly payment you get, pretend you're going to have that for 30 years. Can you survive? The answer is yes. Okay, then you can consider it. 25-34% of your net income. Make sure you have your savings set up. I speak about this in every video. Literally, you just go watch any other video and I talk about this. Or you can just check in my live stream, ask me any questions on my Discord channel. All the links are below. Or if you happen to be in Phoenix, Arizona, you want to have a private conversation, then all the links are below. Right? We know the process of where you should be now. But make sure that you do that for yourself before you take not only this advice I just gave you, but the other advice that I talked about it. So thank you guys. What other piece of advice have you heard that has just been completely terrible and you're so grateful you didn't listen to, or maybe you did listen to, like myself? Shout out to all those crazy uncles giving us bad advice. Thank you guys. Have a good one.